Welcome in to the Richmond DFS Raceday show. Real quick before we get started, if you've not joined us over in Discord, be sure to hop over to the links in the description of the video where you'll find both the monthly and yearly all sports package. And then you can select, if you just want one sport like NASCAR, you can do $5 for the week, $15 for the month, $120 for the year. For just that one, of course, we've got golf, baseball just started back up, NBA, NHL, soccer, UFC, NFL, college sports. We did cover UFL this week. Hope to continue to do that as long as we have enough interest, of course. So be sure to hop in and check out what we've got going on. Get a copy of all of our cheat sheets each and every day. As you can probably tell, don't have a lot of voice, so going to probably make this pretty quick. I will, of course, be in the chat up until a later lock tomorrow. So I'll be around. I'll have ranks and cores up as well. So Richmond this week, short track. Usually a little more predictive than, like a Coda or a Daytona, a Talladega. If you look at super speedways and like last week, road courses tend to be a little bit more variant, especially with them bringing back stage break cautions at road courses this year. Probably going to be a little more variant. This one, traditionally not quite as much, but as we, saw with practice today, as Eric talked about in our Discord chat a little bit ago, Group A versus Group B was a lot different, and just the what the track was. So it's almost like a few weeks ago here at Bristol, where basically I sorted by 5-lap average in practice and kind of went through and talked about Group A versus Group B. I think we've kind of got to do that again. But there's going to be some cases where we just kind of throw practice out and take shots on, somebody who might have had, slower times in practice. So going to hop right in. We'll look at the top of pricing first, and then I'll dive into group by group. The top of pricing is Denny Hamlin at 11.2, the 10K range, down to Ty Gibbs, who sneaks into that range for the first time probably ever in the Cup Series. You've got Christopher Bell, big place differential spot here, starting 29th. He's 11K. Really good history here. Toyota and JGR in general this has been a really good track for them even before the next gen car. So, Denny Hamlin has, 5 top fives in his last 6 races here, including a win in 22 and 3 seconds along the way since 2021. Since the next gen, he's just been, they've carried that right over. Bell in particular, he's last fall was not very good here, but otherwise he's been great over the last few years. Think he's a very solid play. This is a race that you want to still get dominators in your lineups. I think you want to focus on 2 to 3 in your lineup. So if you're playing Christopher Bell, I still think you want to get 2 dominators, and we'll talk about some here in a bit, that there are some in the mid-range this week that I think you can go to, and Bell could definitely get up there and dominate this race. So I think he's a very safe play, but I think he's one that has a lot of upside as well. If he can get up there later in this race, it's a very long race. So, or as far as terms of laps, so there's a lot of time for him to get up there and lead some of this race and get some dominator points for us as well. Martin Truex has been this, before the next gen era, this was kind of his track. He won, 3 times, you can see, since the fall of 2018. Since next gen, he's been 4th, 7th, 11th, and 7th. Still think he's a good play, but he is priced up here. If you look at practice, all the 4 top guys were Group B. So when we sort by Group A and B here in a minute, we'll kind of look at, how are some of these in practice. Bell was the best out of this group and then qualified towards the back. So again, he's going to be my favorite out of this very top range. Kyle Larson, I'm sorry, was in Group A, qualified on the pole. I think he's, going to be one of the top options, probably one of the higher owned pieces. He won last spring here. A lot of upside to be an early race dominator, and it surprises me to see him as the 5th highest priced. So I think I'll have quite a bit of exposure to Larson. He wasn't, great in practice. He was definitely behind some of the other drivers in Group A. But we'll talk about when we sort here in a second. Let's go ahead and do that. What led Group A was 2 Fords of Blaney and Logano. And if you look at, this is kind of a trend across all Fords in practice, really, not necessarily looking at where their 5, 10, and 15 lap averages were, but just on the, fall off, it looks like all of these guys have some. Logano went from 1st, 3rd to 5th, trending backwards in 5, 10, 15 lap averages. Blaney, 2nd, 1st, and then 4th, dropped off a little bit in the 15. If you drop down to Buescher, he was maybe the exception, 6th, 4th, 3rd. Josh Berry, 8th, 9th, 12th, falling back. So of those guys in Group A, it looks like the fall off on the Fords, no matter what the team, but especially Penske, was a little bit of a fall off there in practice. So Blaney and Logano are GPP options. The price tag on Logano is pretty interesting at 84. But if he's going to fall off big time on the long runs, that concerns me a little bit, because starting 10th, he really does need to be, you would want him to maybe to lead some laps, but 8,400, if he gets around a fifth place finish, he could definitely pay off that price tag. Blaney, on the other hand, you do need him to lead some laps, I think, at 95. So the rest of Group A, and you can see this here, all the way down to the top 13 and the 5-lap average were in Group A for practice. Alex Bowman was maybe, to me, the most impressive car in practice of Group A, at least. He's 8K starting 4th. Last spring, we saw Chevy be very strong. They were the top 3 finishers. When Larson won, it was Josh Berry driving for Chase Elliott, finishing 2nd, and then Chastain was 3rd, I believe. So I think this could be another strong Chevy race. Them and the Toyotas are who I'm most interested in. The Fords, again, I don't like the fall off there, but Bowman, one of the top few cars in practice for sure. He's only 8K, so I think, starting 4th, he needs to lead some laps, but I think he could be one of your mid-range dominators if you play like a Larson, Bowman, Christopher Bell team. I think that makes a lot of sense to put him in, and I don't think he'll get a ton of ownership either starting 4th, just being, Bowman. We don't see him dominate a whole lot of races. Ty Gibbs was solid in practice. I think you could play him in tournaments. Chris Buescher was the winner here in the fall. Both him and Brad Keselowski ran really well in that race. Both of them led solid amount of laps. I think you can definitely go there. Again, he was one of the stronger Ford cars in practice. 6th, 4th, 3rd was his trend over the 5, 10, 15 lap average. Starts 14th, and he's a little price discount off of the top range. So I think he's definitely in play. John Hunter Nemechek is down in the value range, 6,400. He was decent, kind of mid-pack of the Group A drivers, and starting 18th at 6,400. I like what I've seen out of John Hunter and this team, early in the year, and I think he could definitely pay off that price tag and be, a tournament option down in that range. The rest of Group A there was, nothing really stands out to me. Because I don't see, Josh Berry starts 30th. Numbers look good, but when you factor in that was Group A and he was 8th out of, 15 to 20 cars. So, he was somewhere around the mid range of Group A, and the rest of Group A after him is just not, top race teams. You got Stenhouse, Haley, Burton, Austin Dillon, Ryan Preece, Hemrick, Zane Smith, Briscoe. That was kind of the rest of Group A. So not a ton of interest in any of the rest of those guys. And I think, their practice times are a little overinflated with just the track conditions there. Michael McDowell stands out quite a bit, starting 31st, 7K. The top Group B driver in terms of 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. I think he's a very strong play in this value tier at 7K. If you look at his history here last spring, he was actually 6th as well. So maybe they found a little something here. Eric Jones, he was also strong in 5 lap average. He was a little bit of a fall off there in the 10 and the 15. But I think you can definitely play him 6,600. Showing any kind of speed starting 27th is a solid look. Christopher Bell, we've already talked about him quite a bit. He was, one of the top few in Group B. In the 5 lap average, he was 3rd. If you look at kind of the longer run in Group B, Bubba Wallace was solid. He was 2nd of Group B drivers. And, really, burst into the back end of that Group A times as well, even though he's in Group B. He's 7,700 starting 5th. I probably won't have a whole lot of exposure, but, I wouldn't fault anybody for going there. He's kind of been around that 10th to 15th place car here in the past. So unless they've made some big strides, I, am a little hesitant there. But he was quicker on the longer runs, overall in practice than a guy like William Byron, who, he he's another one of those Hendrick cars, that could definitely be a part of a Chevy stack if you wanted to go that direction. Byron wasn't great here last year as far as where he finished, but he led 117 laps over the last 2 races here. So definitely a lot of upside. He was 3rd here in 2022 in the spring in the next gen car. I think he's a very strong tournament option. Starting 13th, even gives you a little bit of place differential upside as well. Noah Gregson, I think he's a very strong play. Just 7,100, a guy who was solid in terms of Group B drivers, ahead of like a Denny Hamlin, a Martin Truex Jr., Keselowski, he was right there with him. He was quicker than him in the 5 and the 10. So I think he's a very strong play, starting 17th. We've saw him already this year push towards the top 10. So I think we could see that again this week, and 7,100 is a fair price. Hamlin and Truex, I think their tournament looks not going to be my favorite options. I would lean Truex over Hamlin here, even though Hamlin has probably better recent history in the next-gen car. I lean to Truex, but Keselowski is a very strong play for me at 8,200. I mentioned how good that team ran last year in the fall at Richmond. He was very solid in practice in terms of Group B drivers on the long run, and he starts 23rd. So I really just think that for Keselowski, it's one of those where, and it's hard trying to decipher this practice data, but with what I can tell, he was not so great on the short run, and that kind of showed in qualifying as well, but really picked it up over the long run. And I think we could see that pay off for him in this race. Moving on down, kind of wrapping up thoughts here. Gilliland starts 6th. He was solid speed. Him and McDowell had solid speed. I just have to, at this point, keep him out of the pool just because of the starting position. I don't see him, a top 5 car or anything like that, which, maybe you don't need that. Maybe you need a top 10. Can he do that? Maybe 5,500. Those are not traditionally drivers that I play. Chase Elliott starts on the front row with Kyle Larson. I think you could look at him. If you look in terms of Group B, he wasn't near the top of Group B, but he did, have a better long run than short run car, and he still qualified 2nd. So, sometimes when you're looking at this, again, you don't want to just look at Group A versus Group B and who was quicker in each group is overall who's going to be really fast. I think sometimes what you have to look at is, the track conditions are so different that, like a Chase Elliott, for example, was mid of Group B, but, track conditions were so different that you just can't really compare the two. You have to look at Group B separately than Group A, and you can't really, mesh the two together at all. Because, if one of the cars of Group A were in Group B, their car might have ran completely different in practice, and just makes it really hard. But I think you can pick out these types of trends where, certain cars are better on the long run, and go about it that way. I think that's really all you can do. The rest of Group B, you got Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, kind of in that mid range. Reddick, 8,700, I think is a fair price for him. Can't really tell much about his practice time. Same with Kyle. Chastain, he starts 3rd, and he was good here last spring, especially. I've got to dig in maybe a little more. I didn't get to watch practice. Maybe somebody in our Discord did. I don't know what the deal there with Chastain was, because he was in Group A and the slowest overall car on the 5, 10, 15 lap averages, everything in practice. So I don't know what was the deal there, but maybe somebody watched it. But then he goes out and qualifies 3rd. So as of now, and you look at those numbers, I don't have any interest. But if there was something that I'm missing there, maybe you could throw him in a GPP pool at 8,500. So I'll sort this back by pricing, and we'll play with some builds real quick. I don't think the voice is going to last much longer. But we'll throw in, do this Bell, Larson, Bowman build that I just talked about. I think that's a really interesting one. and then throw in a Michael McDowell. So you got 6,900 left after those spots. I really like Noah Gregson. So you can go Noah Gregson and like Eric Jones. It leaves you in that 67 range. Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek. I think that's a really good build there. You get two, dominators here with one that could dominate later in this race that has a lot of place differential upside as well, and Christopher Bell. So I think that's a very strong looking build, probably where I'm leaning, as of now. I think you can also do something like a, Byron Larson build up here. Let's see if we do that. And then maybe switch out to Brad. Oop. Instead of Alex Bowman, then you got 7K left. It leaves you at the same range pretty much. Not a whole lot of difference there, but that's another, build type that I'm looking at that could make sense. So that's all I've got for tonight. Good luck to everybody tomorrow. Again, a later lock than normal. So I'll be around. I'll have ranks up in the morning or early afternoon, and then cores as well. So good luck. See you guys in the chat. Hope to answer any questions up until lock, and we'll see you next week.